Network.
And a very good afternoon. It is Sunday the 29th of November. It's just gone 8 p.m. here in the UK, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, midday on the West Coast. And it's another episode, 35 I think now, of ProSynth Network Live with myself and my colleagues, cohorts and partners in crime, Mr. Ben Simpson and Cryss Synthient. Gentlemen, how are you this week?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Chris?
Yeah, doing well.
Good. Very glad to hear it. So we're back with a couple of hours of commentary and discussion, and hopefully, a lot of interaction from the chat room. Let's see, we've had people in there for literally the last sort of 20 minutes, half an hour or so. So let's welcome Native VS, Wagyu, ASIO Head, Sasquatch. Who else have we got in here? We've got Sinister Goatfish.
Oh, nice.
It's a new name. I don't know who that might be. Maybe they'll reveal themselves. ASIO Heads here. JD, Inverted Popes. That's Aaron. We have a Facebook user commenting. Now, this is great because we stream now to both YouTube and Facebook. But if you are watching on Facebook, and that's great, we don't mind if you do, you need to click the link that's in the show notes on the Facebook page that links your Facebook account with the StreamYard account, and all it does is it just allows you to be identified in the chat, so then we can then throw your messages up on screen and say thank you or whatever it might be. It's pretty innocuous. So if you're watching via Facebook, if you could do that, then it just makes our lives a little bit easier, and you might get some fame from it. What else? Who we got? Yanisetta's in there as well, and Atto Z, and Andrew Dixon, Steve Pierce, and hopefully a whole bunch of others. And if you are watching and you're not participating in the chat, why not? This is an interactive show. This is what we do. We like you to kind of respond. And we'll take your comments and we throw them up on screen, like this one from Inky. Hello. See, so we can do that. We're all technological now. And stuff from ASIO Head, my Insta Facegram. There we go. And our Facebook users decided to jump to YouTube, apparently, according to that. See, that's what happens when you watch on Facebook. If you don't link the two accounts, we don't know who you are and we can't say hi. But there you go. So good evening to everyone that's in the chat room, and to everyone that's not in the chat room, a good evening to you too. We've got lots to discuss. We're not going to kick off with the obvious one, I don't think. If you were watching during the week, actually a couple of us did some videos. One, I did one on this channel, and Chris did one on his own channel. Chris, you put together a video about the theme music, is that correct?
Yeah, so as we had been talking, we've upgraded our software, and Robbie had put together the countdown sequence, and then Ben did an intro sequence, which is the second piece of music that has all the ProSynth Network stuff on it. But we just had some stock music for that countdown, which sounded very business conference. So well, we can do a little better than that. So what was it? Early in the week, I think. I don't remember. I just sat down for a little bit, and or maybe it was the end of last week that I did it. And I just we got 30 seconds here, and so I put together some music for it, featuring some stuff that I've been working with, and also notably on there, the pad and the kind of analog FM bell sounds came from our very own Native VS, and so he had posted some samples up in our Facebook group, and I downloaded them and worked them into Logic Sampler and made that part of the arrangement of that music. And so if you'd like to kind of see how all that worked out, I did a video that I posted, well, been late last night for me, probably earlier today for you, on my channel, which should be Synthient Sound on YouTube, and you can see how just a breakdown of how that all works. And yeah, and then that's about it. That was a fun little project to work on, and I like seeing all our new intros and then having Ben's music there. I love the music that Ben created for it. So
So we're currently badgering Ben, aren't we, to get him to do a similar thing?
Yeah, I'm trying to overcome my camera shyness to do that.
Yeah.
But when I heard it then for the actual intro to this show, I thought it was amazing how well it kind of went with what I'd done previously. Like, it was the perfect introduction to that in a way. It matched it tonally and all kinds. It's done a cracking job there. It's perfect for what was needed.
So if you want to see that video, it's on Cryss's YouTube channel, which is Synthient Sound. So if you go and look for that, it's up there. And go and watch, because it's very interesting. I always like to see how tracks break down and how people put things together and what they use, because you learn.
Those Simmons drums are great, aren't they?
Yes.
That hex drum thing.
I still need to pick that one up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get that as well.
Yeah.
For Andrew Dixon, you can hear the sequence. The whole thing, including the video, is at the end of my video on the channel. So, if you want to see that play through again, you can check that out at the end of my video.
Or you can rewatch this show. It's at the beginning.
Oh yeah. So. This is the first episode that we've used it, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounded great.
Yeah, definitely good stuff. And I think the next challenge is the outro music, which again we've just kind of cheated and borrowed some stock music. So we'll replace that as well. Maybe it'll just be an ongoing thing, like Top of the Pops theme. Every year or so we'll change it up for something new and different. Who knows? So yeah, we've got plenty of stuff to go through today. Lots of topics and new products and news and stuff like that. And of course, we've got our weekly poll discussion, which we'll have a little bit later on. But let me just remind you all that if you wish to donate to us, and these donations go 100% into the running of this show, to paying for the hosting and the streaming services, you can go to it at this link down here. It's also in the description, the chat description below the video, so you can click on it directly from there. You guys have just been and girls have been absolutely amazing in your donations so far. Every little helps, and we are eternally grateful for it. Something else that you can do to join in the show and have a bit of fun is Native VS has done his regular PSM bingo. It's the same card as last week, I'm told. So I think you can just refresh it or reset it and play along with that, and we'll see if anybody gets house. I'm sure that we will, because we are quite predictable. And of course, finally, you can join us on our Facebook page, which is just search for Pro Synth Network there. And if you haven't already, please do join us over there. Right, okay, let's see, what have we got? Right, let's go with the first topic here, which is CME's WIDI jack is now preparing for pre-sale. So what CME do is they do this thing called, what do they call it? It's not crowdfunding, so you don't have to pay up front for it. But basically, you sign up to say, yes, I'm interested. And there's no commitment in doing this. You just say, here's my email address. I'm definitely interested in this. Please tell me when it goes into production. As soon as they get 3,000 of those, they commit to producing it. And then it goes into manufacture. And that's that. It's done. And the bonus is that you don't have to pay anything up front. But when the product is available, again, there's no obligation to buy, but when it is available, you get it for $29, not $59, which is a standard price. So you get like a 50% discount straight off the bat just by saying, yes, I'm interested. And if you want to buy it, you buy it and you get half price. So WIDI Jack is hit its 3,000 registrations, last week I think it was. So that's now going, the pre-sale is going into gear, and they will, I think we're probably looking at early part of next year before that's available, once the factory goes on. But here is one right here, right now. This is a pre-production prototype. These are my stickers, just so I know where what the ports are on there. But if you watched our channel during the week, I did a live video, and you can always go back and watch it later on if you missed it and you feel that way inclined, where I demonstrate this and show how brilliant it is. It really does work. But that is now available or will be available to pre-order in the next few days, and you can still register now to get your $29 price if you want to use that. Plenty of stuff there, and the deal is now that when you buy the WIDI Jack, you will get a choice of one set of cables to suit. So the WIDI Jack has a 2.5mm TRS connection. So you choose whether you want to go 2.5 to 2.5, 2.5 to 3.5, 2.5 to 5 pin, 2.5 to 6 pin. Was that? I think that's. Oh yeah, that's all the options. Or you can buy a complete set separately. But they do actually point out that because they're not cable manufacturers, their prices are probably not as competitive as you can get somewhere else. So, you take your pick and you choose from there. Guys, we've spoken about WIDI, master and that stuff plenty of times before, and that's obviously something that people can now tick off on their bingo sheets. Does WIDI Jack appeal to you? Because I know, Ben, you've got some WIDI masters but haven't really used them. Cryss, I don't think you've pulled the trigger on any of these yet. Does this appeal now that you can connect kind of like loads of different types?
I thought at first that it was useless to me, but then after watching your video, I think I'm right in saying that some MIDI outputs don't supply power.
Yeah.
So that would mean that the WIDI masters wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But with one of these WIDI jacks, God,
I know.
isn't it? One of these WIDI jacks, you could get a converter to go from the mini connector to a standard connector, and power it that way, so it would still work. I think that's right, is it? Or...
Yeah. So basically, this draws power from a USB-C connection there. So basically, you just take a USB-C cable, plug that into a USB port, and it draws the power from there. However, as I pointed out in the video during the week, that if your device does supply 5 volts or 3.3 volts on more modern devices from the MIDI port, that can power this, and so you don't need the USB. But if it doesn't transmit power, then this does the trick. Cryss, are you thinking about getting these? Are these something tickles your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I try to get by with as little MIDI as possible. But I think these are really clever little devices, both the Jack and the WIDI Master, and so I'm glad that they're being made. And the WIDI Jack I could see as being something that would come in quite handy when you're trying to figure out how to integrate everything together. So pretty great. This is like a little niche in the market that needs to be filled.
Yeah, definitely.
I could see it being good live.
Well, this is the thing. There's a lot of people have been saying, this will be, susceptible to interference and all this kind of stuff. And of course it will, to some degree, but we've not been able to properly test it. Nobody's been able to gather anywhere, so we can't test it properly. But I know, obviously, Ben, when you get the green light to get your new band out on the road, that will be a great way to test it if you're brave enough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll do it.
Yeah. But so there you go. If you want to know more, go to our channel after the show, of course. Go to our channel and you'll find that video, that live stream that I did earlier during the week, just to kind of demonstrate a few bits and answer some questions. ASIO Head says I convinced him and he's bought 50. I don't know if that's true or not. Probably not, knowing ASIO Head. And I mean that with all the respect in the world. Wagyu says, was that the IK Multimedia Uno synth I saw in the pics on that page? Yes, that's my video. I did a video on my channel, so I've done about 4 or 5 kind of just like, look what I've just discovered it can do kind of things. And so yeah, the Uno synth, which is a cracking little synth, uses 2.5mm TRS MIDI connections, and so therefore they don't supply you can't use the WIDI master, and they don't supply power. So the WIDI jack is absolutely perfect for it. And I actually had visions of this thing being like, twice the size, but it's not. It's dinky, and it's got this little metal disc on the back. So it's got a magnet in the back there, and then this little disc with a sticky pad on one side. So you can stick that on the underneath of your Uno synth, and then this will just, click on and stay there and not budge at all. And it's just great, yeah. So I'm really enthusiastic about it. And I want to point out, because I know I do talk about WIDI a lot, I'm not being paid by these guys, and I've bought every single WIDI unit, apart from this pre-production one. I pay for these. These, this is not something that I am being asked to do. I'm just very enthusiastic about it, so I'm happy to answer questions. Let's go through. Let's say good evening to Manny's in the chat room. Welcome, fine sir. How are you? And lots of more people joining us in there. Right, so that's WIDI. It's WIDI Jack is now available. If you want to get your half price version, then just go to the CME website, go to the WIDI Jack page, and there's a big register now button. Click on that, and you can sign up, and you just give them your email address, and then when the pre-sale starts in December, with an expected delivery time at the end of January, you can order for $29 and not $59, and that you can order as many as you like at that price. I think they might put a limit like 10 or something, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's as many as you like. So there you go. That's WIDI Jack. I'm
off for a minute to partake in the bingo game, so I need the proper sustenance.
Okay.
But if you guys would discuss what is your favorite filter, SSM or CEM, and then let me know what you decide when I get back.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
SSM or CE? I don't even know if I have an opinion on that.
No, as long as it sounds good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I've got Fairlights that have both SSM and CEM filters in. And what's the Behringer got in? It's got their clone of the CEM, isn't it? The Curtis.
So. Oh, the Curtis one. Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, so Cryss has disappeared.
He's abandoned us.
He's just waltzed off. Yeah. So I won't go into any particular news topics, but particularly the next one, because I want the opinion on this one. So let's just quickly go through the chat room. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll throw this up down the bottom of the screen. So don't forget, if you want to donate, it would be lovely if you could. There's the link, and it's also in the description down below. I'm not how many times I'm going to say that tonight, but so let's see. Here's something I found. Here, I'll throw this one up. So this guy, Justin Hawkins, lead singer of rock band The Darkness, who are absolutely fantastic. I love them to bits. I've been following them since day one because they're a local band to me, and this picture cropped up as a part of it was on Synth Memes, and somebody had taken this picture and adapted it in another way. But I looked at this and I thought, hang on a minute, look what he's got on his right forearm. And he's got the DX7 logo. He's also got a mini Moog on his upper left arm. He's got Lowestoft, which is the where he was born. He's got a cassette on there. It's just bizarre kind of thing, trying to work it out. But I just couldn't believe that. And I did a little bit of digging, and apparently he has a DX7, and it is one of his favourite synths. So there you go.
Well,
with regards to filters, Cryss, we came up with as long as it sounds good, we don't really care.
So we weren't really sure.
Yeah. Here, hold on a second here, guys. Let's see if we can make this happen here.
Oh, Bit
I want to
lively.
get that on my 414 there. All right, here we go.
Just listen to that. Is there a finer sound than a beer being poured into a glass?
That did sound.
What
pretty
have we
good.
got? Let's get rid of your
Oh,
wee heavy coconut.
We heavy coconuts.
Yeah, I've been like that for a few weeks. Excellent. Well, I'm going to join you a little later because I've got my wine tonight, which I haven't had for many, many weeks because I've been trying to cut down because I'm trying to lose weight. And he's got some Guinness, so we're all going to be absolutely at the end of it by 10 o'clock. But yeah, I didn't have any wine on Friday. So normally what I'm doing is I'm having a couple of glasses on Friday and a couple of glasses on Saturday. But I didn't have any on Friday because I was up early driving, so I thought I'd give it a miss. And so this is Friday's treat. I'm having it on Sunday. So yay me.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I've thought long and hard about this next topic and whether we should indeed even give the subject oxygen at all. I know that some shows have and some shows haven't. But I thought it's created such a furore online that we would be remiss if we didn't just cover it. Now, we could have covered it last week. We decided not to because it literally, it just dropped that day. And so we thought we'd give it a chance to play out a bit. And so, let's see. We had this thing that dropped last Sunday, and it was... Get the correct screen up here. If I can find it, here we go. Right. I don't think we need to say any more than Behringer's Swing. So Behringer announced, they teased it a few days before, they announced this controller called Swing, and literally within a fraction of a second the internet lost its collective backside. Or the contents of that, and poured online and decided to tear Behringer a new one. And I couldn't believe how close these were. And then I say that, but then we go, it's Behringer. Now, we've all got opinions on Behringer, and I don't want to have this take up a huge amount of time. But I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. Whether you think this is a good thing, whether you think it's a bad thing, has it changed your opinion of Behringer and what they're doing? Have at it. Who wants to go first? And so let's have like 5 minutes each to kind of get our point across and see where we go.
Go for it, Ben.
Well, I think that Behringer is a company that has lovers and haters, and a lot of people were kind of forming a better opinion of Behringer of late. I think some of the things that they've done, a lot of people haven't been happy with it, but some of the things they've done, they've been turning a few heads and turning things around. But something like this, there's been people trying to justify it in the group and that with arguments, everybody copies this, everybody copies that. But it's just blatant, and I can't see the point of doing something absolutely blatantly the same as something else. You're not offering any benefits over the other one at all. No. It's just a way of slicing into the little pocket of that market. For no reason. It's just, I don't like it. And people say, oh, well, Arturia, let them without sync cast the first stone and that, but Arturia, like, they have designed that product. They haven't copied that off something else. That is, it's, I don't know whether Axel Hartman had something to do with that, didn't it?
That's his design. It is
and he's put thought into that, work into it. I don't think somebody else should just get the benefits of that thought and work with no time invested at all. It's wrong.
Well, the Swing does have one advantage over the Beat Step that I found, and that's that it has a cable pull thing. At the end, stop your cable being pulled out. It has that little loop.
Yeah.
That's it. So, but there you go. Cryss, what do you think?
Yeah, so, I mean, I have a key step, and I love it. And it's a great design. I'm really happy with it. In fact, it's on loan to a friend right now. He's borrowed my Hydrosynth, so he's checking that out. I think, to just take the emotion out of it for a moment and look at the business of all of this, I think that probably what Behringer wanted to fill is that you see these package sets. In fact, I was just online yesterday, especially checking out deals and stuff for Black Friday, and you see a lot of Behringer synths being packaged with key step controllers. And so as a business, you think, well, why aren't they being packaged with our own controllers? Oh, we need to make one. Right, so that makes a lot of sense business-wise, and that's something that they should do, and that's good to do, and all of this. Second point, I got one more after this, is that product design and copying stuff happens all the time. It's part of the way that commerce works.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Mr. Benz or Mr. Daimler were the only ones that had any sort of ability to sell automobiles? It's like, well, there's inventions that happen. In fact, the law allows people to create new products or new inventions, and then those patents run out so that other people can get into that same market, and it works. And they did that for the sake of humanity in general. So if there's somebody that comes up with something really great, it's not monopolized for too long of a time. So and there's been some discussion of Stratocasters in the chat, and that's another point. One of the most iconic musical instrument designs, and it's the most copied. And even in the pedal market, the Ibanez Tube Screamer, pretty much most overdrive and distortion pedals in some way trace their lineage to a Tube Screamer with a dual inverting op amp and diodes in the feedback loop, or to like a rat style pedal where it's got the same op amp design but diodes to ground. That's just the way that most of them work. And so there's some original designs out there and stuff, but it's just the way that it is. Now, that being said, I mean, that's just the way that things are. That's the way that things work. My opinion as to this design of this swing, I understand why they would want to copy the key step because it's so popular, but it just seems really lazy to do it like this, and I don't think they should have done it. They should have innovated a little bit more. There's things about the key step that I don't like. The modulation slider is okay. The pitch slider is where I usually have problems because it's inset into the housing. The plastic housing sits above, and the strip is below it, but there's a little lip. And I don't have gigantic hands, but when I push to bend the pitch up an octave or whatever it is, or whatever you have it set to, it's hard to get that all the way up in tune, all the way up to the top, unless you're like kind of bending your finger to try to get that little track, all the way to the end of the track strip there. And it's very difficult. That's a design issue that they could have changed and would have made it better. They could have offered it with more keys, which would have been very attractive. I like having it sit on my desk, but I always wish it was bigger, had more octaves to it. But I wonder if also that this is planned from the get-go to never exist in this form. Because we see that although they make some like really awful marketing decisions at times, sometimes we see that they like to put stuff out there and the proverbial throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And it could be that as we've seen in the past, like they throw it out, the internet goes crazy with publicity. I mean, they've got all the publicity about this they ever need. Now they can go in and do a redesign of it and make it original. We hear you. We've listened to you. We've made it the way you want it. And everybody goes nuts and buys it. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. If it comes out just the way that it's shown, they're going to sell a ton of them. You know, even if it's only $10 cheaper or whatever. I just think that they would have missed the ball. But I'm just going to make a guess here that that's not going to happen. That they're going to do some redesigning on it, and then all of a sudden people are going to be really happy with it. So that's my prediction for it.
Yeah. I mean, the age-old adage that there's no such thing as bad publicity. It's just publicity, and they clearly subscribe to that business model. You know, I saw this and thought, dear, they've spent so much time over the recent time building a reputation that that they're delivering products that are, yes, they're clones of other older products that do not exist, haven't existed for a long while, and whose original manufacturers have let the trademarks lapse and have shown no intention of producing again. So it's kind of fair game. And I don't think that what they've done with synths like the 101s and the TD3s and the monopolys and that, I don't think it's going to be hurting anyone financially. No one is going to be out of a job because they've released a clone of a Korg monopoly. Korg are not going to lose anything from that at all, and Roland won't have lost anything, I'm pretty sure. But this is an existing product.
So let's talk about that for a second. So what do you think of the fact? And first, let me just put on the table. I have at least one Behringer product, which is right behind. Oh no, there, it's right behind me. It's in my Waldorf. There, it's a Model D. And I have a lot more Arturia stuff. I have a Key Step, and I have the Micro Freak and the V Collection and some software effects. So just to put it out there, I'm just making some arguments. I'm not putting an emotional spin to this, but I mean, what do you think of that? Because if the argument becomes they shouldn't copy an existing design that's out there, that's currently being made. Arturia has done that very thing. It just happened to be that like one of the few products that Arturia hasn't copied is the one that gets copied. What do you guys think about that?
I know that whole argument of, well, Arturia are, making a song and dance about something that they've been doing themselves. I'm not entirely sure. I get that and I appreciate that, but I'm not entirely sure if it is the same because, for example, the Arturia Mini Moog, which I think was that their first virtual instrument. I can't remember. It was one of the first. I think
it was, yeah.
But that was done with the blessing of and in conjunction with, to a point, Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob approved of it. And he would, had he lived, I am sure, been incredibly interested in how soft synths are, kind of taking, the place of hardware, certainly, weighing in. And a lot of the stuff, again, that yes, Arturia have got V Collection. So, you've got, Oberheim Matrix, you've got the Jupiter, you've got the Prophet, you've got, the Moogs and the Hammonds, and, and yes, they're all kind of software clones. So there is that kind of argument. I just don't think it's a strong one to say, well, Arturia have been doing it, and so why can't Behringer? Arturia just being served a dose of their own medicine. I think it's a little different. I think there's nuance there. I don't know.
Okay, so let me put this forward, because Native VS asks, which products did Arturia copy without express permission? So I'm just going to tell you what Behringer themselves said. So the Arturia Mini Lab copies the design of the World Mini MIDI controller. The Pile Pro PD Mic 78 of the Shure SM57. The Sub-Zero Control Pad 64 copies the Novation Launch Pad. The Soundpeak SP MX 104 USB copies the Behringer Xenix 1204 USB. That's according to Behringer. From just on the surface of it, it looks, the design elements and things look like they've just pretty much ripped it off.
Yeah, I mean, every synthesizer, not every, but most synthesizers are derivative either in their design or their functionality of something else that existed, because somebody saw something that worked really well, and they've I mean, there are so many examples of synthesizers and other products. You know, people are talking about cars in the chat room, where, you know, there's clearly a design hits a spot and everyone wants in, and they want a piece of that market, so they come up with something and it looks fairly similar or sounds fairly similar. There are only a certain number of truly innovative, firsts in all these things.
I think that thing with Cryss though, that mini lab, it is an exact replica of that other keyboard, isn't it? It's as close as the swing is to the key step.
Yeah, I mean, they look almost identical.
Yeah, and that is a case of them doing exactly what they're criticising Behringer for doing.
Yeah,
doing the same thing.
But I mean, I understand that Udi Behringer is his own man with his own plan, and he carries it out, and that's that. But you would have thought that if you've kind of slowly built up your reputation, that you've started to shed that bad reputation in favour of a slightly more favourable one, then why would you go and do something as this wasn't something that somebody just pulled out of the hat and said, hey, why don't we do this? People sat around the table and decided to do this. There was conscious decisions, there were sign-offs, there were everything. This, and somebody at some board meeting or whatever sat down and said, maybe it was Eddie, we will do one of these and we're going to make it almost identical. And people around the table all had to go, okay. And maybe somebody
agree with. Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that matter. Like, I think they're legally allowed to do this, and they can fight it out in the courts, and that's not for us to decide. And Arturia has done the same thing, but in both accounts, I would say, is this really what you want to do? Now Behringer's had a long history of doing this. This is how they've become a big company. I mean, they've copied Boss pedals, Line 6 stuff, Shure, Mackie. I mean, the list goes on and on. All sorts of pro audio stuff that they've been doing this since the 90s. So this is not something new that they do. They haven't changed their strategy. But to your point, Robbie, when you say like they've really gathered some good favor from the synth community by taking some of these classic designs and redoing them, and there's been so much positive happening for them in that direction, that to do something like this just seems a little bit silly to me. Like, why wouldn't you make your own interesting product that's a step above this? I mean, look, when Arturia did the same thing, and it's like nobody cares about this with the mini lab. Nobody, that's not really the talk of the town.
No.
But the key lab is.
Yeah.
And that was an original design, and definitely want to commend what's his name? Alex Hartman, right?
Yeah.
That was a designer, yeah. Commend him for his design work on it. But Behringer, why do you drop the ball on this when you could move forward and do something that's interesting like that? Yeah.
I mean, if they had an idea to build a controller, and like you made a really good point about retail outlets are bundling their gear with other people's controllers. So somebody at Behringer is going, hey, let's get in on this. Great, let's get in on that. So what you do at a product design meeting, you say, well, what do people like? And you throw up some pictures on the wall, and there's the key step, and there's this, and there's that. So these are the ones that people really like. So let's can we do something like this? Get us off the ground. So let's do a key step. Let's do something that is our version of a key step. But all they had to do was put pitch bend and mod wheels rather than touch strips. They could put the controls in different places. They could just maybe, like you say, improve one or two things and put their name on it, instead of literally a one-for-one copy.
Yeah. I mean, if they want, they could have made it, instead of, 10 pounds cheaper, they could have made it the same price, done like you said, put mod wheels in, and or taking a lot of the secondary functions of the key step where you have to hit a button and then hit another key to change something, and put some of that stuff, because you have on the key step that big wide space on it that's empty, and there's nothing that you're going to set on there. So when I have a few more buttons up there, there's so many ways you can take that design and evolve it a bit.
Yeah, and they have said that this has got, or it's ready to use on their upcoming free digital audio workstation. So there will be some kind of integration there that other things won't have. Great, but right now you're selling a product that is identical, literally identical, apart from 2 or 3 minor things, but functionality wise it's identical. Just do a little bit of innovation, just stoke the fire that has started underneath this reputation of being a company that listens, that provides what people want, and move away from this, because they had moved away from the label of perennial plagiarists. They'd moved more to servicing an area of the community. And of course then we have that whole thing about the community, and I want to wrap this up because we're going to waste too much time on this, but the community itself has just gone into massive meltdown, and you've got it's almost like this is happening politically globally. We're going to do the same. We're going to have a camp that's pro Behringer and a camp that's anti Behringer, and never the twain shall meet, and we will slag each other off online. And it's just crazy. It has gone absolutely bonkers with people. If you, bottom line is you vote with your wallet. If you don't like Behringer, don't buy Behringer. If you like Behringer, buy them. And if enough people like them, they'll carry on. And if you don't want to use them, don't use them.
Wagyu makes a really great point in that he says, I'm amazed that they've still not put out a Waldorf KB37 clone after years of asking. So the KB37 is what I have behind me here. If someone doesn't know, it is made by Waldorf, and it's basically a Euro rack keyboard. So you put your own modules into it. And I thought the same. I mean, not to copy it. That's probably what Behringer do, but for anybody else in the market or them, is to market something like that, maybe even give it an extra octave, but then have some sort of a slightly lower price point, or make the features better, in some way improve on it a little bit, because it's such a great format. And I know Aaron also in the chat room likes to do what I've got going on here, where you got some. I've got a bass with the Model D, but I could just as easily have got some Dreadbox modules or something in there. And then you have a whole bunch of different filters that you can patch in, and you basically got this like super mono synth going in there. And I can grab it and I can take it with me somewhere, or I can, move it around and play it. Less like a self-playing sequenced Eurorack, but more like a key playable synthesizer, like a Mini Moog. And so in some way it's like an expanded Mini Moog for me. And I think a lot of people would go nuts for some product like that, but nobody's taken to market to try to compete with Waldorf about it.
Yeah, they seem to be, I don't know whether Uli's picking the wrong fights or the right fights, but yeah, there you go. Anyway, look, we probably spent way too long on that. It's interesting. We'll see how it plays out. I'd be happy if they did what you said they might do, Chris, and do a redesign and come out and say, okay, we listened, we get it. Here's this, and maybe even go into a bit more detail about how it integrates with their new upcoming free digital audio workstation.
I think it would be. It's fun watching their marketing. I mean, so for a moment, like if you just set aside the emotional investment and all this synthesizer stuff and just watch how things play out between companies, it is quite fascinating. And one of the interesting things that I always look for when Behringer sticks their foot in their mouth, or at least appears to stick their foot in their mouth. I mean, they certainly did with the Kern stuff, but with something like this, I'm not so sure that they're as bumbling idiots as it appears that they are.
Oh no!
But when something like this happens, all of a sudden for the next 2 weeks, you have a flood of teases and new products shipping, and it's like they save it all up, and then when something happens, they bury it with all this other stuff. So you can always at least look forward to some new gear announcements after those things happen.
Absolutely. And one thing that's just kind of popped into my head, because we're going to move to this next topic, but Akai, from Roger Lin, with their work with Roger Lin, came up with the classic MPC pad grid, and that was an Akai thing that was given to them, I guess, by Roger Lin from his designs. But then that just became the standard, didn't it? And there were a few, not so much clones, but certainly, nobody had a go at Native Instruments when they came out with Machina, because despite it being the classic, 4x4 pad structure, they innovated. So here's our version of an MPC, but it does all of this extra cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really where, if Behringer are going to say, look, we really like the Arturia key step, we want to build our own version of it, we'll do it, but just be a little bit more clever.
I was thinking about that, though, because they've got like absolutely no research and development costs in this at all, have they? Even if to use Chris's idea of using that blank space for a couple of more buttons, the knock-on effect that has on the design internally, a different shaped circuit board, different screw mounts, different cases.
Yeah.
When you're copying something, it's just all done for you, isn't it? It's such a lazy, quick.
Yeah. I mean, and Inky made a good point in the chat room that things like the Neutron and stuff, those were kind of, although you could sort of like say, well, that's kind of like one of these. It wasn't, and it was kind of innovative and original. But those were all designed by the Midas team here in the UK, and I know for a fact that a lot of that team don't exist anymore. So maybe this is Behringer saying, well, we can't innovate anymore because we lost all that lot.
That's worrying. Yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on? Has anybody got a final point they want to make, or are we happy?
I'll just add, as far as the redesign that Ben was talking about, like, for a company like that, if you're talking about a major firmware undertaking like the Moog One, that takes a lot of work. But the firmware or circuit board redesigning for something like a key step is not going to be that difficult, and especially with the amount that they're going to sell, that I don't think any of them, they wouldn't have any sort of problem just retooling up for that. That's not going to be an issue for the amount of money they'll make on it.
Yeah, probably right.
Okay, well, there you go. We're going to draw a line under it. We'll see what happens, and if anything drastic changes, I'm sure we'll report it. So we mentioned Akai there. So the news from Akai this week is that they've got this new software, plug-in, the drum synthesizer, the drum synth plug-in instrument. Now, I am not an MPC user, although I've got one, or had a couple, but I've only got one left now. Certainly not up with the latest versions of these. But this sounds quite interesting. You've now got this this Akai system where you can load plugins in, as well as it being a kind of central hub for your recording and your sampling, and of course it also works in the desktop software as well. Guys, any thoughts on this new thing from Akai?
I think it's exactly what the MPC stuff needed, because when I was looking into, I was going to either go for the MPC Live or the MPC One or whatever it was, or this Electron analog rhythm, and it was the drum synthesis that swayed me to go for the Electron in the end, because I thought that I wouldn't have enough sound creation opportunities with just samples. And if this had had the drum synthesis at the time, I think I probably would have gone for Akai.
Yeah.
Because I'm more familiar with the way that the Electron works is like it's been created by aliens who were off the face on drugs at the time. But the Akai way of working is a lot more familiar to me, so I think it's a great addition to drum synth,
because it uses FM synthesis, analog, physical modeling, and samples. So it pretty much covers all the bases in terms of what you might want from drum sounds, and of course it's available across all of these platforms. So that the Force, the Live 2, the X, the One, and of course the MPC software. I'm not even sure. Does this work with the free MPC software? Because I know they did a free version of it. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But that's I mean, it's great that finally, Akai have come back with their original thing. Although we could just debate that, but when Native Instruments came in with machinery, everyone thought, Akai, they've had their day. They've let it lapse too far, and Native Instruments have come in and stolen the show. And this really kind of brings it all back.
It does feel like the company's on the the crest of a wave kind of thing.
Yeah.
It certainly seem to be coming up with some good products recently.
Which is good. I mean, I've always got a soft spot for Akai, and I just think this is great. 725 presets, 9 engines, unlimited user preset slots, 7 audio effects. I mean, that's a cracking package that you've got in there. And I was watching Jamie's show before, and Andrew said that this was absolutely fantastic. He got it within like 5 minutes of using it. He was knocking out all sorts of stuff. So that's
from what I've seen, it does seem like that this is Akai striking back at Electron, because it is kind of where their products operated. Yeah. So but it's good. It's opened it up a lot more. Definitely. It can only be a good thing. Yeah.
You have any thoughts on this one, Cryss?
Not too much. I know people are excited about it, and my biggest excitement about it not being an NPC or a Machina user is that I imagine Inky and Andrew will be making some new music with this stuff, and I'll get to listen to it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm increasingly tempted to have a look at these a bit more closely. I never really got the whole MPC shtick. I know exactly how it works. I know how it does its thing. It just didn't match my brain. I spent too much time just dicking around with it. Well, I'm sure that had I spent a bit more time learning, it probably would have been better. But it's interesting. Definitely interesting. Right, let's see, what else have we got. Let's have a look at some software. So this is an interesting one. I'm not sure how many people like a nice Hammond organ, but
wait, who doesn't like a nice Hammond organ?
Well, this is true. This is true. We always talk about synthesis and everything, and so let's talk about some organs. So these guys, these guys. I'm always singing these guys' praises. This is a company called AcousticSamples. They're based in France, and they produce sample libraries for the UVI platform. So again, UVI platform is maybe not as popular as the Contact one, but it should be. We won't go into that discussion. But they've had a sample library of the Hammond. They've called it the Hammond B-5, and it's now into its 3rd iteration. It's a free upgrade to anyone that owns V2. And it is quite stunning in terms of its authenticity. They've redesigned the layout, so they've moved things around to fall more in line with users' requirements based on how the original was used. And it's just such a very simple thing to get a really great sound out of straight away. So you've got not only have you got loads of different tone wheel settings for each upper and lower manual, but you've also got voicing models, you've got tone wheel models, and they've modeled all of the different varieties of tone wheels and voicing and the different versions, B3s and A1s, and we could go into the depth of it. And they've modeled even more Leslie variations and different speaker cabinets and amplifiers. You've got effects in there. Everything just seems to be really nicely laid out. And let's see if we can play this little demo here. Let's get to...
Here we just replace the audio via MIDI.
They've also built in a whole bunch of controller presets. So if you have a Hammond controller, or for example, as you can see here, this is the Korg. the Nord stage combi, isn't it? So you've got controller patterns to match a whole bunch of controllers that are instantly mapped to that as well. They sent this to me about 2 months ago in advance of the release, just to sort of go through it. And I'm not a player in by any stretch of the imagination, but the authenticity of this is just incredible. It really, really is. Did you guys get a chance to listen to this?
Yeah, I think it sounds fantastic, and it's great to hear these B3 emulations really, getting better and better. I like the way that the Akai multimedia one sound, this one as well. So even before I was really into keyboards, the one thing that I was absolutely fanatical about, like to a fault, as a guitarist, was Leslie's and Leslie simulators, and trying to get that sound. And it's a difficult thing to do, and most people completely miss the mark on that sound. It's a very complex sound with all the Doppler stuff, the phase cancellations. You have the kind of 800 hertz notch in there. That's one of the easier things to replicate, but so much of hardware and software has just missed the mark. It's probably a lot easier to get the actual Hammond organ tone, but to get the correct kind of drive and the Leslie sound with it is pretty difficult to do. And so when you hear something that doesn't sound like kind of in a sense a static organ, but you hear something that has a lot of life and the grinding, you feel like you're hearing the Leslie sweep around, and the organ pushes the power section into overdrive and those kind of things. I really enjoy that sound.
Yeah.
And whether it's on with a Hammond or which is what this is, and for me also having good Leslie simulators for guitars as well as keyboards, that's important. But I thought this sounded really good. Their sound samples had a lot of life and really for lack of a better word, a lot of mojo to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. I mean, I'd say I can't play for Toffee, but when I see some of the guys they've got in to do it, it's just, I close your eyes and you just wouldn't know whether this is a real one or a fake one. Ben, do you like handling an organ?
Well, I'm actually going to go against both of you here, and I actually go back to when I was a kid, and I used to hear songs, and I'd hear this really awful noise in the background that would put me off the song. And it was only later on, after I discovered synthesizers and that, I discovered organ sounds. I thought, oh my God, this is that sound that I couldn't stand as a kid. It was an organ, and the more that it wobbled, the more it annoyed me.
It's a bit like your camera at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the rage. It's like, and yeah, so I'm not the best person to ask on organ stuff, because I'm not really a fan, but I can see how a really good emulation is going to be perfect for something like main stage. If you're going out live and you don't want to cart around a big B3 Hammond with you, then the little laptop will give you the same sounds. But I'm not very cultured in the organ department, if you.
Yeah, Vicky did say.
So I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know a good sound from a bad sound, to be honest.
Well, at the moment they've got a Black Friday sale on 30% off. I mean, this full price is a massive €99. So you can have this for €69, and you don't have. It's powered by the free UVI workstation. You cannot go wrong with this level of quality at that price. Is staggering. It's absolutely staggering, and they're such a really good company to deal with as well. I mean, I've been dealing with 2 or 3 guys from there over the last I don't know how many years, and they answer emails and questions really, really quickly, and the quality, you could really hear the love that's gone into this. It's very, very good.
Well, and speaking of organs, since you posted that what's his name, Justin Hawkins
Oh yes,
photo, the other day on the thing, and it keeps coming up like really close to the top of my Facebook feed. And
I keep thinking he's got no pants on when it flashes up.
gosh, we are so close to seeing his Hammond that I don't want to see that anymore. I might have to moderate some on the Pro Synth Network group and take that off.
It's just, I'll tell you what that was, and I mentioned it earlier. It was through this whole Behringer furore that had been going on, and synth memes. Somebody had taken that picture and superimposed or put a Behringer logo on there. And it was that I've seen Justin live a number of times, and he gets shirtless very, very quickly. He's very Iggy Pop in that respect, except he doesn't do the rest. But he does take it all off, and I've seen his tattoos, but I'd never noticed the DX7 on his lower forearm there, and I was just astounded. But there you go. So there you go. So anybody got anything else to say about B5 organs? Are we happy with that one?
We're good.
Yeah, good. Right, okay. So I'm now going to kind of defer to Cryss's expertise on a couple of things here, a couple of topics that are probably more his bag than mine. So first of all, we have Valhalla Supermassive, which we've spoken about numerous times in the past. They've just updated now, so we have Valhalla Supermassive 1.2. Is it? Yeah, 1.2.0. With 2 new reverbs and 2 new delay modes. Now I have downloaded this, but I haven't had the time to check this out. Cryss, can you give us some information on this and your thoughts?
Yeah, so there had been addition of a couple modes to Valhalla Supermassive. By the way, chat room, drink up. And so it's the plugin that keeps giving, and it ends up being a plugin that I keep going to time and time again, because it is a very interesting thing, especially when you're just doing some like broad ambient sound design, that it just fills that notch perfectly. So with the 2 new Supermassive, the newest Supermassive ones, I played through them, but I haven't properly used them yet. Their other update was to Valhalla Delay, and that adds 2 modes as well. And in fact, I used the Valhalla pitch duck algorithm on our intro, our countdown.
Oh, yes.
For that. And the duct tape is a mode that replicates, I think it's a old Univox Echo, and it's really cool sounding. It's very dirty, like super modulated. It gets pretty nasty, and it's a lot of fun to use if you like tape delays. So and the thing that these plugins are so cheap, $50 all year long.
Yeah.
And then Sean and Don keep putting out excellent algorithms to expand them is pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say that every time you say duct tape, I want to go woohoo. Anybody else get that joke? No. DuckTales. Don't you remember DuckTales?
Oh
the
yeah,
cartoon?
yeah.
Never mind.
Sounds...
Did you have a chance to play with the Valhalla?
No, but I haven't downloaded the update. But I'm a regular user of the first version. I think it's brilliant. So I'll be getting this as soon as I can.
Good. And the other thing that I was going to defer to Cryss's superior knowledge on was this news from Eventide. So let's just bring this screen up. I've got to find the thing. I still need to figure out a better way of doing this. Right, here we go. So Eventide have made an announcement that the standard H9 and H9 core will no longer be produced after March next year, and they will only be manufacturing the H9 Max harmonizer. This is apparently because there is a limit to the amount of algorithms that they can have in those old, the versions that they're retiring, and so they're now concentrating on something that will have better expandability, or at least that's how I understood it. So my first question about this was, and I'm not an H9 owner or user, but if I had H9 or H9 Core, and I know that they're offering a free license to registered H9 Max owners, is this an improvement? Are we going to be missing out on anything, or is it just a case of they're moving to a slightly newer version of this to accommodate bigger updates?
No, actually, hardware-wise, nothing's changing as far as I'm aware of. It's still the same product that's being put out, and basically, you had the option to buy algorithms for it. It came with a few, I don't know, 4 or 6 algorithms on it, I think. I don't remember. It's been a long time. I got one after it came out. In fact, I can show you guys here. My small board that I used for gigging here. And H9 has been a great pedal in that it's a jack of all trades. So you can, take it to a gig and then all of a sudden, like if you're sitting in with people and you don't know what's going to be in the set or whatever, you can quickly dial up your, I need a Leslie sound. I don't have a Leslie simulator on here. I can get on there. Not that it's great, but, or I need this type of delay or whatever. It's just all in there. I don't have to carry around a bunch of extra pedals for that. But they all the H9 hardware, as far as I understand, were the same thing. It's just a matter of what software version that you buy into, and then you could start with the core and add algorithms for like $20 an algorithm, or you could buy the max version, and then automatically you would max out, and whatever new one came out you would get for free. And so I had bought it soon after it came out, and it's got basically all the factor algorithms, like if you guys remember the time factor and the mod factor, pitch factor, all that stuff. And so I've been getting free algorithms for it whenever they release it, and so now they've maxed out the memory in it, and it can't hold anymore. So they're just going to sell it as the max, straight out of the box. That's it.
Right. Gotcha.
And the cool thing that they did for Max owners, for everybody, they offered incentives to buy into the Max system, and they're not going to be selling them a la carte anymore. So if you have a certain amount of algorithms, they'll offer you a prorated rate to upgrade. And then if you are on Max already, this was a surprise to me, is that they offered a license for all their plugins. And so all I had to do is go into my Eventide account and activate it, and then I was able to download the entire, so it's not all the 52 that are on there, but whatever they have in their VST-AU format, I now have for free. And so all of a sudden, I'd only had, I think, one of them. I had the Shimmer one, and now all of a sudden I've got all of them that they've released. And so it was a nice little gift to have for the computer and for recording. It's like, well, now I've got all this stuff. Not, I still always go to my favorites, but to kind of have those things in the arsenal and some classic Eventide sounds like the micro shift, the detune type stuff, or the crystals or whatever it is, that's kind of a cool thing that they did for owners, because sometimes with these softwares, and especially with them, like how many times do I own Eventide Shimmer? I have it in the Moog 1, I have it in the hardware, I have it on the computer, and with these other algorithms, like I'm not gonna buy those. I already own them twice over, so why, so like they're just saying, hey, yeah, you already own them, have them in all the format.
Cool. Ben, you got any thoughts on this? Are you
I'm not really any expert in this field, really, but I found what Cryss was saying very informative.
Yeah, it's kind of cleared it up in my head. Again, I mean, not that I needed it because I'm not on the platform, but no, it's helped. It makes sense. Time moves on, and improvements need to be made. Right, so that's Eventide 1H9 to rule them all. Next up, so here we go. This is going to tickle my fancy. We'll do this one. Actually, no. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll save that one. Let's do our ProSynth Network weekly poll discussion. I thought this was an interesting one, and this one came from one of our viewers, Mr. Steve Pierce, who is in the chat room today. So, Steve, thank you for suggesting this one. We stuck it on our to-do list, and we decided to put it up there. So, the weekly poll discussion. This question comes, or the poll question comes from Steve, and it says, do you consider yourself a synthesist or a keyboardist, or maybe both? Is there something about synthesizers that makes them particularly suited to being controlled by a keyboard, or is it an historic artifact? What alternative controllers do you prefer? So we put these suggestions up. So a synthesist and keyboardist, so synth playing and sound creation. A synthesist that mainly uses sequencers. A keyboardist, i.e. a pianist, organist, etc., and plays keyboard synths. John, our resident electronics guy, added idiots who muck around with polls, and that got 7 votes.
I voted for that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And then there was another option there: synthesist, non-traditional note input. Tell us what you use. Steve added one in there: programmer, software-based composition, thinking about C Sound, Super Collider, Max, etc. And then Tim threw one in at the bottom there: all of the above, especially the idiot. And Tim was the only person that voted for that one. So the top of the list, as you can see there, with a massive 59 votes, was synthesist stroke keyboardist, that's synth playing and sound creation. And the second place was quite a way down in terms of number of votes, mainly a sequencer user. Then we had keyboardist, and followed by idiot, and then the less. I was surprised actually that there were only 2 non-traditional note input users, and I thought there might be more than that, but maybe they just didn't see the poll. But there you go. So it's an interesting question, because I think we've also talked about this in the past on the show about the relevance of a keyboard. Is it mandatory? Should we be exploring beyond the keyboard? Can the keyboard be doing different things? Thinking along the lines of Expressive E and Roly and that kind of thing. And there certainly has been, in my opinion, there's been a big shift over the last, say, 5-10 years to a less keyboard input approach. There's so many more people using modular and sequencers and different ways of triggering their notes, that I genuinely expected that to be a lot more evenly balanced. I was quite surprised. What about you guys?
Yeah, I thought there was going to be more alternative control on there as well. That was a surprising one. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Robbie, but one of our first shows, and for some reason I have in my head it was just you and I, like Ben wasn't on that week maybe. Right. I mean, like first 3 or 4 shows, somewhere in there, that somebody asked us something like, how good of a synthesist are we? And I remember after the show got done, I was like, I just like kind of almost hit in my head, like I answered the wrong question, because we answered the question of how good of keyboardist are you? Yeah. And the question was, how good of synthesist are you? And that's radically different, probably for both of us. And so when Steve asked this question, I thought it was an interesting one to get the group's perspective on. And I feel, I know I'm a little bit of an odd duck in all of this, because I come from guitar, but so many in the chat room have also come from guitar as well. And so as I was getting into synthesis, the synthesis part of it, I just took hold of really quickly. And to be honest, I'd been doing it a long time before too. So just getting it to into my own music or my own recording, and oftentimes having to work with keyboard players that didn't know how to use how to program their instruments. So often, like if I was in bands, I'd end up like, oh, this is how you do it, or you want to do this or that. And so when I actually got really passionate about synthesizers and like, okay, I'm going to buy lots of hardware and all of this. The keyboard part of it is what I thought I would really not gravitate to, because I don't play. I never had piano lessons. I didn't get into that at an early age, and so I thought, well, maybe these alternative methods would be, more interesting, sequencers and stuff. And it really has turned out to not be the case at all. And that I do actually gravitate more towards keyboard input. I do have some other things like Mutable Instruments Marble for sequencing, and some things like that. Pamela's New Workout, and I can do some of those things with it. But I do tend to, when I make music, I actually sit with a keyboard, whether it's whatever I have in front of me to control software synths, or if it's sitting at some hardware, and just try to work it out. And I know that just sitting down and playing something, I'm not going to be the best, but instead of drawing it out in piano roll in Logic, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to practice it until I can input my part pretty correctly. And then I don't mind going in, and like if I got a good take and my clumsy hand bumps another note within that take, I don't mind going in there and taking it out.
Yeah.
To me, the song is key, not whether I can key it in or not.
Yeah.
But I do like to. That's just the way that I like to do it, and I don't think that's one way is better than the other. But I do enjoy watching and seeing how people kind of attack synthesis in a different way, and especially when it's a non-keyboard version of it, like how have they gotten into doing that as a regular thing? And some people are so amazingly good at it that if I were to sit down there and use sequencers and get a whole bunch of machines running on sequencers, it would just take me forever. But they just go and they set it up and everything's going, and it's quick and it's happening and it's interesting as they're changing things. But they know that. They've spent the hours to master that. I know what's going on. I understand it up here, but they just have all that muscle memory and knowledge about how to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think there are two kind of aspects to that. There's those people that their brains are wired in a way that they can absolutely relate to these alternative methods that are not traditional. So, some people are just better equipped mentally to deal with non-traditional inputs, and also I guess there's an aspect of what you kind of grew up with or what you started using. So if you take Hendrix or Sonny Thompson or any of these kind of left-handed guitarists who is it Sonny T? I think it's Sonny Thompson, who was a bassist with the New Power Generation and Prince. He did that thing where he was left-handed, but he could only afford could only have access to a right-handed bass guitar. Instead of restringing it so that the strings were at least the right way round, he learned how to play it technically upside down, and that's it. And he can play bass like no other people can play bass. He's amazing, but all his strings are the wrong way round. So even on a proper left-handed bass, he has them strung upside down, and it's just what he that's what he started with. And so I guess if you come into electronic music, and you can do it so much more nowadays than you could before, where you have certainly a non-traditional input method, whether it's a touch sensitive surface or a sequencer or an arpeggiator, or whether you're just drawing. I mean, I can't get my head around how people can draw in notes on a sequencer to make their music. They don't use keyboards. It's just like, it's all like, I'm just going to draw all these notes on the piano roll. I think that just makes my head hurt. But people do it, and they do it really well, and they come up with a great end product. So yeah, Ben. Actually, before you do, sorry, I forgot I was going to put this up. This is from our question contributor. What's interesting to me, says Steve, is that the keyboard is ultimately a percussion instrument, which doesn't seem like an obvious choice with synthesis, and that's a very good point. And maybe that's why because I'm first and foremost a drummer. I'm all about hitting things, so maybe that's why I was drawn to the keyboard and have never really looked elsewhere. But anyway, Ben, sorry.
Yeah, I was just while Cryss was saying about his own personal techniques and whatever, I was thinking I hate these polls like this, because it always makes you like self-analyze, and like I'm like looking at it thinking, am I a synthesist? Well, no, because I can't program synths as good as Cryss and Jamie can, so I'm not a synthesist. Am I a keyboard player? Well, that Jordan Rudess, he's faster than I am, so I'm not as good as him. So, and I just keep like, and I end up realizing that I'm not that good at anything. But I think that's what you do, isn't it? It's like you do everything to your ability the best you can, and that's what makes you as a whole. You're good at that, you're good at this, and then it comes together. And so I couldn't really tell you which one I am. I think I'm a keyboardist synthesist. But
maybe to reframe it then. I mean, for you, because you're talking about how good, like the level of expertise you have at anything. Like you can do all that stuff, and like you say, well, I don't program as well as. Well, that doesn't matter. You can still program. You still can do MIDI dry. You can play keyboards hell of a lot better than me, I'll add. And you do all these things, all these different techniques to make that happen. But I would say what defines it for you is what are the ones that you love to do? And that's what you are. I mean, we can all do probably all of these things to some extent. But what is the thing that you love to do?
Oh, yeah. Keyboard noodling and production stuff, I think that's what I like the most, enjoy the most. I was going to say, though, as well, the word synthesis, it is essentially copying something, isn't it? It's like an emulation of something, would you say? That's what it means? Because...
I suppose depending on you can use synthesis, the word synthesis, because it's not just exclusive to electronic music.
A programmer wouldn't be a synthesist, would they? If they were doing like sound design, sound creation, they're not necessarily a synthesist, even though they use a synthesizer. And I would add there that like maybe somebody like myself who spends most of the time, copying sounds. It is more of a synthesis because you are trying to emulate the sounds that you can hear, which is probably the true meaning of synthesis.
We're getting deep here now, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're getting semantics. Yeah. I mean, from a personal experience, I say I'm a drummer, so I've always been very, hands-on, rhythmic, hitting things, and I love the percussive nature of the keyboard and the fact that you can. Hit it harder and get different timbres and I love that. But I think the only reason I went to keyboards is because for such a long while, particularly in my formative years musically, that was it. If you wanted, synthesizers were predominantly keyboards. Yes, there were other things around, but it was always keyboards. And I used to go to Sunday school, not because of any religious motivation. It was because it was like a youth club on a Sunday. You can go and play football or pool with your friends. But they had a piano there, obviously. It was in a little church. And I used to just go and sit at the piano. I used to love playing and making noises. And it was probably horrendous, but I had so much fun doing it. And it just kind of stuck. And so I've never really had an urge to go and explore. And the only thing that I possess other than my drums and my keyboards that is a different input method is breath control, and that's something I've only really started dabbling with just recently, and I'm not entirely sure I think I'm any good at it, but there's lots of different ways to kind of come at it, and we're all different, we're all unique, and it's just like I like Logic and you like Cubase, and if we all did the same thing with the same instruments, it would be an incredibly boring place,
So, one of we sort of verged on this in the group itself, went as a discussion below the poll, and it was on about like guitar controllers have never reached the full potential. They're pretty awful from a guitarist point of view. But I wonder if, like, so Cryss, if guitar controllers, MIDI controllers were absolutely perfect, would you choose to play that over a keyboard? Would that be the instrument that you run for,
Yeah, that's a good question, and it would be yes and no. So I've had some, I actually had, up until at least fairly recently, it was the probably best form of guitar input to synthesizers, MIDI pickup, and that was the Fishman triple play. And in some respects, it was absolutely fantastic. I was working on a song back when I had it. I sold it a couple years ago, and it was kind of a Beatle-esque song. And so I'm like, man, I want to do these like horn parts for it. And so I could have sat down and figured it out on a controller, and I could have worked on it and played it in. And, okay, this is what I want. This is, what the notes that I want, the theory from the song and all that. the physical putting it in would have taken me longer, or I could have drawn it in, but then that's just like I would want to hold a gun to my head to draw stuff in, for me personally. And so having the guitar controller, because of the muscle memory and just having spent decades with the guitar, when I went to compose horn lines, I was like, oh, I want to be kind of like this. I sat down and I did one take of it into Logic horns or something, and I had the complete thing done. I was like, wow, that whole solo section plus all the other horn parts in the song were done in like 10 minutes. Yeah. Like, this is fantastic. This is so quick for me to do. But some of the drawbacks for that system is that it's usually riddled with latency, and so there's a certain disconnect that you have. Whereas with the guitar, even going into a system like this, I think I've got maybe 3 or 4 milliseconds of latency in my system. So that's not that bad. I mean, that's like standing 4 feet from your guitar amplifier. That's nothing at all. I mean, if you're on a big stage, you might be back, 10, 15 feet from it or something. You can deal with that. But with some of these guitar MIDI controllers, the latency and then the tracking is not the greatest usually. Now, Steve and I have been looking at Steve, which one is it? It's the... I can't forget the name, the studio guitar, Jamstick Studio or something. I can't remember if that's the brand or not. Yeah. And so they've had a couple other models that are, they just don't appeal to me. They don't feel like guitars. But this is an actual guitar with a very small body, but I guess their pickup technology for the MIDI input is supposed to be, Steve says Jamstick Studio. It's supposed to be good, but there's not enough people. They're not out yet, I guess, and there are not enough people playing them and reviews to find out really what they're like. But that's really been a sore spot for guitarists who want to make the most of plugins and synthesizers and all this. So, sorry, one more thing. So the thing was, for single line stuff, the guitar is so much easier for me. I'm getting used to playing leads on keyboard, so it's not as hard as it used to be for me, and I can whip something out, but. The thing is, like, some chordal things are a lot. The guitar is naturally good for some stuff, but not for others, and same thing with keyboards. And so with guitars, you can do some really interesting chord variations with open strings and chord shapes up high in the neck, and then just the way it's like really wide, interesting sounding octaves. And it's a really interesting way to move things around and find creative accidents that you later go back and go, oh, that's some sharp 11th chord or something like that you find out later that as you study it. But with the keyboard, some of the patterns, some of the shapes are easier, and so there will always be things that I think are going to sound better compositionally on an actual keyboard, and especially when you get to things that are more like piano-y, it just sounds a lot better. I mean, you can adjust your technique on the guitar, and if you play, I'm usually a pick user, but if you play with your fingers and a finger picker, you can get closer to the sound, just like the way that a keyboardist can better approximate a guitar stuff. Like if you're playing a rompler and you strum and you roll your chord, because it'll be like the pick passing the strings instead of it all hitting at once, as you want to do on piano. So there's some techniques like that, but the long conclusion here. Yes and no.
I guess if you're trying to, I was thinking about this when you were saying that. If you're trying to create a guitar part on a keyboard, it really does require you to learn a playing technique that matches that of a guitarist. Similarly, if you're a guitarist and you want to do, a horn section or something, then you're going to have to adjust your playing technique.
Yeah, very much so.
Because the way a horn section sounds is not how it's played on a guitar or a keyboard, even in some respects. So there's a lot of that.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
How nerdy do you want to get with this?
Go on.
So I can answer one of your questions, but it's going to expose me.
Right, go on then.
Oh,
I like a bit of exposure.
That's where synthesis comes from. That's Greek.
Oh, yes.
And it's from the preposition soon, which means with, and tithemi, which means like put together
Mm-hmm.
to make. Yeah, kind of somewhere in there semantically.
Yeah.
So it's like putting things together.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, to synthesize. Yes. Well, it's an interesting discussion, and we could go on, but we've only got half an hour of the show left. We've got a few more things to do. But great poll question there, Steve. If any of you guys watching now have got an idea for a poll question, please do let us know. You can either just ping us in on Facebook, or if you've got our emails or contacts, send us something there, or send us a message, and we'll be more than happy to consider it and put it up there as a potential weekly discussion. So there we go. That's that. So what shall we do now? Let's talk about some software instruments that have come to light this week. The first one I'm going to indulge. I was going to do this before. This is completely self-indulgent, but I really like this, and I think a lot of people will like this one too. And this is the new instrument from a company, quite a different company with a different business model. This is called OPZILLA, and it's an FM monster according to the blurb there. But it's basically a 4-operator FM synthesizer with the operator controls exposed here for all to see, so it's nice and easy to manage through. I'd put it on, in terms of its capability, I'd put it on a par with the TX81Z or the DX11, in that you have multiple waveforms to choose from, but it's all really nice and clean. But it goes beyond that, because you've got a couple of LFOs, you've got distortion, chorus, delay, and reverb built in there. You've got this very lovely, unique feature, which is an attack sample that you can put in at the beginning of your patch to give it a little bit of bite and edge. It's got 64 algorithms, which is not a true number of algorithms. It's more like they count feedback as a variation and therefore give it a different algorithm. But it's kind of the basic 16, and then there are variations of those enough to bump it up to 64. But I think this is an absolutely cracking little synth, and it sounds really, really good. And not only that, it's you can try it for free, for starters, but when you go to buy it, you can pay what you like, and the lowest price that you can pay is a measly $10, and the company will give 10% of your chosen purchase price to a charity of your choosing. They have a selection of charities, so you buy this, you say I'm going to pay $50, and you choose your charity, and $5 will go to the charity of your choice, which I think is quite unique.
That's great.
And they do a number of other instruments as well and effects, but this I just picked this up and thought, I'll have a go, and it's really nice and intuitive. I have asked the developers, is it compatible with DX patches, DX11, TX8, and they said no, but you can kind of recreate them quite easily. So if you wanted to do that, you could. But I'm liking this a lot. And there's some deep dive videos that you've got there. There's demonstrations. Let's see if we can play one of these here for you now. So there you go, that's OPZILLA. It's available from Together Audio, that's the number 2, togetheraudio.com. So you can name your price and donate to charity as well. You'll also notice that over here on the top right hand side, where currently it shows different algorithms, you've also got spectral analyzers and frequency analyzers, waveform imaging on there as well, so you can kind of get an idea of how your sound is being generated. It's just really cool. Did any of you guys get a chance to play with this?
I've not yet. Don't know about Cryss.
No, I haven't. Quick question.
Well, there's another little software synth that is my excuse.
All right, I'll give you that.
I was gonna try them both, but I got so engrossed with one of them, I never tried the other.
Nah, that's fair enough.
So, to my credit, I did. Actually, I've been programming a lot of FM stuff on the Novation Summit, and I like it a lot better than just going to the wavetables that they have. So you kind of build it up with all the frequency modulation between oscillators and stuff, but also using Robert's analog FM modular sounds in our countdown music was nice as well. But I didn't have a chance to play this. Aaron wanted to know, does it do poly aftertouch?
I don't think it does. No. I saw that and I just had a look there. No mention of it. But I don't have a polytouch keyboard to try, so I couldn't say either way.
Yeah.
But there you go. All right, so that kind of fell flat. I'm the only one that got excited about that. But then, hey, that was predictable, right?
I think it sounds really good, and I like these attack things that you can load in. That's really interesting. I suppose it's just a percussive element that comes in, so you could have the attack portion of a xylophone on I don't know, flute or whatever.
Yeah, well, it just gives you that extra little bite to it. And the attack portion of a sound is quite important. So to have that kind of control is pretty cool.
I mean, if anything, we'd just say, like, I was waiting to get your opinion on it.
Well, I like it. I think it's really nice.
At first I was like, it only has 4 operators. Robbie's not going to like this. And then you said you loved it.
Yeah, no. Well, see, this is a common thing, is that people think, oh yeah, less operators means it's worse than something, but that is not true. That is not true at all. I mean, I've now got a TX81Z here, so I can poly it up with the DX11. But those waveforms, it has 8 different waveforms, whereas the DX7s and the DX5s and the DX1s all just had sine waves. So you get some really interesting different sounds, and even though it's lacking 2 operators, it way compensates with the different waveforms.
I've always thought that'd make the sound thinner, though, because the operators are like oscillators in a way.
Well, technically, an operator is like a miniature synthesizer. So an operator has an oscillator and a filter and stuff all going on inside there. So you're just kind of cobbling those together. The amount of operators doesn't necessarily equate to the fatness or the fullness of the sound. It's how you use them to modulate each other, I guess.
Are you saying it's not the size of the tool, but how you use it?
Yeah, it's my mantra.
Right.
Absolutely my mantra. Paul says 2-op FM is great in the right hands. And am I right in thinking that is it the Waldorf or one of these new synths that does FM is only like essentially 2 operator, but is coming out with some amazing sounds? I can't remember. Maybe I'm made that up. I don't know.
But it should be said too. Like, I mean, when you think about analog subtractive, I mean, it's great having 3 oscillators going on a mini Moog. But if you just use one and straight into the filter, it also sounds really good.
Yeah.
So there's no problems there.
Yeah. It's when you detune them, though, isn't it? But then again, you only need 2 to detune a sound, don't you? To get it. Yeah. Exactly.
Talking of FM, and I know I often do. Look, I got a new one, the CE25, which is a lesser heard of 1982. Chorus ensemble, and I was going to try and get it set up. It sounds amazing. It's really good. Essentially, the CE20 and the 25 were like cut down versions of the GS1 and the GS2. Completely preset synth, no MIDI, but it has these things like symphonic features on there, and it's got aftertouch. That is 1982, has aftertouch, and you can mess around with exactly what the aftertouch does. It's brilliant. I have to do it. I think I'll have to do a video on that one.
Yeah,
that's
we need
really,
a demo
really cool.
on that. Yeah.
It's great. So, I'm going to try and figure out if I can MIDI it up, because I do like to have MIDI on there, but you can't do anything with it. Anyway, so there you go. OPZILLA FM is available now from togetheraudio.com. That's together as in 2, the number 2, gether audio. So there you go. And that's starts at $10, but you can pay what you want. Now, the next instrument, and this is Ben's excuse for not looking into the last one. Again, this is even better because it's completely free of charge. This is Cherry Audio's Surrealistic MG1 Plus, which is their version of the Realistic MG1, which was, of course, a Moog design, sold in the Tandy and Radio Shack stores back in the day. And it's free. And let's have a quick listen to. I'm not sure if I turned the audio on this one. I don't think I did. Just bear with me, caller. I need to reshare that with the audio turned on. I will get used to this. There we go. So let's play that again. Oh, that's right. Duh. Start the technical hitch. Certainly has a sound, and it's a fairly unique sound, but it sounds fun. So come on, Ben. Your excuse was that you spent time down a rabbit hole with this one. What are your thoughts?
There you are. I couldn't hear a word you were saying there, Robbie.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It sounds great though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a cracking thing. Like you say, it is free, and it's an analog modelling version of the synth that was released by. Was it Radio Shack or
yeah
Radio the Tandy
under
brand.
the Realistic brand.
That's it.
Yeah. Realistic. This was, and I remember at the time, like. If you saw somebody with one of these, it was like, oh god, they've got one of those like Tandy synths. Like, as though it was a bad thing. Yeah. And then like later on, it kind of got out that Moog had designed it, and everybody was kicking themselves for not buying them up when they could, because it was actually a pretty little, good little mono synth, and this. It's free. I don't know why it's free. They should have charged for it. I mean, even if they charged a tenner for it, it's worth a tenner. It's a cracking little thing. It's not got much kind of depth at the lower end. You can hear the sound as you go down the keyboard. You can hear the sound losing its ballsiness at the bottom end. But that didn't bother me at all. I put it on and I was. Like down a rabbit hole. I only came up for her about 3 hours later, and it was nearly time to go on with the show. So I was there thinking, I'm going to make a track with this one synth, and it's just inspiring, and it's a great little thing. The filters are really nice. Mm-hmm. It's got cracking filters for a software synth, and obviously the tied to the specifications of the original synth, so there's some limitations in there that isn't Cherry Audio's fault at all. Like the envelope has only got attack and release on it, right? And I don't think you can specify. It only seems to be one envelope from what I can remember. So it alters the amp and the filter at the same time, and there's probably ways around it, but I didn't. Like, I was too busy just messing about with the things I liked.
Was the original monophonic?
Yeah, I think it was, but I've noticed that on that one the organ sounds and everything are poly, aren't they?
Yeah, it had a divide down system.
Oh, did it?
So it did have a poly slider on it.
Right.
Yeah,
which is separate from the main synthesis part, which is monophonic.
Yeah, so it's similar to the string machines and what have you at the time, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's great though, absolutely great.
I have like fuzzy memories of seeing this because over here in the UK it wasn't Radio Shack, it was Tandy, wasn't it? I don't know why that was, but yeah. So I remember Tandy, which then eventually kind of became Maplin's, didn't it, here in the UK, were these stores where you would go in and you'd have a massive catalogue and you could buy any component, any fuse or capacitor or tool or instrument, and then you had these kind of build at home kits, and it was always like, if you saw something like that, it was kind of like a bit cheap and nasty. And I do remember seeing this and seeing like a synthesizer and thinking, well, I'm not sure. Because when was this first released?
Well, I remember this. It's got to be early 80s.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'd have the pocket money to buy it, or the skills to put it together. But it's
it's like a stab at 83. Me, I'm not.
But the fact that I think if nobody had said that this is basically a Moog design inside, would it have achieved the status that it has today? Would we be looking at it as a quirky little retro synth that nobody really cares about, or do people only care about it because it's got that Moog?
I don't know. It's a
DNA?
valid point, but like there's other instruments that have come from humble backgrounds, like the cheetah stuff. And they're quite
cat.
They're held in quite high regard, even though they've got no particular heritage.
It's funny how time changes things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cryss, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I downloaded it, so I have one criticism, and everything else is really cool. So let me get the criticism out of the way. I think Cherry Audio has a hard time with filter resonance.
Right.
And I went and I checked it versus some videos. It's been a while since I've even seen one in person. But I actually went and looked at Mark Doty's old videos of him walking through the MG1, which it's great. I mean, they're like 10-year-old videos, but they're fantastic videos for seeing what an MG1 really does and some of the features and things you can do with it. But just checking out his, even if you just go and check out the filter section on it, I think the original still sounds better when you start pushing up the resonance. And I think that's kind of a common theme in the Cherry Audio synthesizers. That aside, really cool of them to do this. The MG1 is a very fun one to do. It's limited, and it's not something that you'd want to be your main synthesizer, as Vin was talking about, like just having an AR envelope and things like that. And it's quirky. It's that poly slider and just what it has, but it still has two oscillators that you can detune against one another. I think this beats out the Moog Rogue for coolness and sound, and to be honest, it's so fun that it makes you desire to have the hardware, except for the fact that the stinking hardware is like $600 or $700 now for this little thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but especially these days when you're considering, like, I could buy a vintage MG1 for $600 or $700. I'm gonna probably have to do a little bit of work on it. I'm gonna have to clean the sliders, maybe replace some electrolytics capacitors or something. Or for half the price, I can buy a brand new synthesizer that's analog and does twice as much as this does. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a great little synthesizer. I'm sure I'm going to use the amp a lot, and to consider some of the other free things that we've received from companies. Just really a lot of just got to thank these companies and like Valhalla for releasing Supermassive, for Cherry Audio releasing this free. And it's not like they were charging a lot for their other synthesizers. I mean, that Juno one was $19.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts. That's really cool that they're doing that. And I mean, the kind of music you can make on free synthesizers or low-cost synthesizers these days is amazing.
If we've said it once, we've said it 100 times. Is that, the choice that people now have coming into it, and I always use my son as the example, that you can just go out and legitimately acquire such a massive range of sound making devices that we couldn't even dream of it back then, because it was just pointless dreaming of it back 30 years ago. And now you can get all of this stuff, and it's free and it's legitimate. So
the other thing that you can do with this too, so like what Ben said, it's not so big in the low end, and as to what I understand, that the original is similar in that regard. But so when I was first testing it out, I just boosted the low end a little bit in Logic, just using the regular channel EQ, and then I even tried it by putting it into a little bit of clipping too that sounded really good. You do like this MG1, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of low end boost after that, and then into something like Supermassive, and it's killer. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's a cracking little plug-in there.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I think we give it a highly recommended. We should do that. We should start our own rating systems. Maybe, companies will put it on their website. ProSynth Network, highly recommended. 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
We should do that maybe. So there you go. Cherry Audio, Surrealistic MG1 Plus. CherryAudio.com is the website, and so you can pick up that for free. And of course, their other products are pretty low priced as well. So they're turning out. I think if they can sort those things like the filter bits out and stuff, then they will be somebody to pay a lot of attention to.
Just related to that, OPZILLA, with their donations of charity. Last time I was in Portland, which is in Oregon. It's the East Coast. It's just north of California, south of Washington. There was a gastropub that had was a non-profit gastropub. So you'd go in and you'd drink your beer and order some food, and then when you paid for it, you selected the charity that you wanted to give for that day, and then it was a ridiculously high percentage of what they took in from your food went towards that charity. I don't remember if it's like 25% or something. So, and mind you, they're paying salaries of workers, they're paying for the building, and then they would give like a quarter of the income to whatever charity. And they had like 6 charities up there, and so it's single mothers or feeding people or whatever it was. It was a really cool thing to do, and so I just wanted to point that out about the OPZILLA and them doing the charity things. I thought that was really cool.
And to be fair, I buy everything on Amazon through the Amazon Smile program, so that a percentage of everything that I buy through Amazon, I have to admit I do buy quite a bit through them, goes to, and in my case I chose cancer research, and so I get a statement like every, I don't know how I can see it. It's not a massive amount, but some of it is going to charity, and that's just a good thing,
Yeah, it's better than it now, isn't it?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. So yeah, well recommended there. And let's move on to, we've got a couple more things. Look, I know what you're going to say, but I don't do this. I don't put this stuff out there. These people put it out for us. It's another FM thing. It's Sinevibes. Have released Node, which is a 4-operator FM synthesizer or synthesis engine for the Korg. I call it the Logue platform because it's the Pro Logue, the Mini Logue, but also this little guy, the NTS1. So this will work. Obviously, it works slightly differently on the NTS than it does to the others. But for $39, you get this incredibly good sounding 4-operator FM synth in that format, and I haven't downloaded this yet, but I am thinking about it, because even though the NTS1 is only monophonic, and I do like chords, this might be useful for things like bass sounds and stuff. I would like to try it on a mini log or a pro log, but let's have a listen to some of actually I'm going to do this again because I've messed up. Let me share my screen again and make sure that I've got audio switched on. So share audio.
It's great that Korg's created this open platform.
It's great. It really is.
And like things like this can really transform a synth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just prolongs the life of the synth and gives it so many more dimensions. Very FM-y sound there. That's nice. Sinevibes and their Node plugin for the Logue platform. Any thoughts on this one? Does anybody own Prologues, Mini-Log XDs?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, that one fell flat on its face.
No, I think this is cool though, and I think it sounds good. And actually, Sinevibes has not really been on my radar until very recently. I guess they're revamping their plugin stuff. So again, I don't know the history of it or the company. I just recently got into it, but their first of these is a plugin called Albedo.
Yeah,
and it's a kind of a granular effect, granular delay, basically. And it's really good sounding, very musical. And so I've been using that on a lot of stuff lately, from synthesizers and guitars and anything, just experimenting around with it. So they seem to have a good ear for sound so far. I like this demo that they did. And the only thing I don't like about it is that it's taken them away from making more plugins, which I would use. So...
Well, I was just looking through their website, and I clicked on the Mac tab, and it said, Albedo is there as the granular cloud reverb, and then they've got this thing here. What's coming next? Excuse me. What's coming next? It feels like they're going to kind of they're ramping up for something new and different. But this Korg platform, I have to say, I'm only into it with the NTS one, but it has spawned this little cottage industry of people like Tim Shoebridge and others, and Sinevibes, that are making these really unique little plugins that really expand the capabilities of the synthesizers that can run these things. So who'd have thought that if you went and bought a Mini-Log XD or a Prologue, that you'd end up being able to have 4-operator FM synthesis, modeling synthesis, wave shaping synthesis, and then all of these different effects. I mean, the effects really was why I bought the NTS one, because I thought for that price to get a machine that can do so many great effects, that's a real bargain. But I'm slowly being drawn into this this instrument thing as well. So it's very refreshing to see. Indeed. So there you go, Sinevibes. It's the Node 4-operator FM synth. It's available now for $39, which again, when you think about it, it's no money at all for essentially what is a new synth for your synth.
I wonder how difficult it is to program through that interface, though. It's not going to be easy, is it?
I've no experience with the Prologue or the Mini-Log. I mean, with this, hellish is the. I honestly don't know. I mean, there's not much to mess around with. What I do with this is I just twiddle things until I get something I like, and it's as simple as that. I don't really know what I'm doing.
That's what I'm like on all of them.
Yeah, I do, and I've just managed to kind of bring this back in because I built it and put it together and kind of liked it, and couldn't really use it as an instrument because I didn't have any MIDI connectors for it, because this uses the 3.5mm. But I managed to buy some cables. Actually, I thought I was buying one cable. I got 3 for like £8. So now I can use this via MIDI. So I intend to use that a little bit more, and maybe that's the trigger for me to go out and buy that and use that, see what it's like. Ooh. Right, last thing, and it's kind of, no, it's not. I'm just going to shut up now. This is the last thing before we wrap up and say goodnight. Last week we spoke about Kodamo, and we were talking about how they're improving the Essence FM, but they have... I mean, we looked through their website and we saw this thing called the BitMasker, and they have now made this announcement, and they've given us not a final design, but a work in progress, which has changed slightly. Now, I've only had a small chance to kind of read. They've not put anything on the website other than what we see here on their Facebook page. And it says it's a small synthesizer, because we thought it might be a drum machine with the hex pads on there. We thought it might be, but it says it's a small synthesizer creating its sound using binary masks. Yeah,
that got me, that bit.
What's that? What are binary masks? Does anybody in the chat room, Chris?
It sounds cool, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, BitMasker obviously relates. It says 16 super rich oscillators full of harmonics, with resonant filters and weird modulation options. But even looking at the interface design, you've got different waveforms. So you've got like sawtooth and square and triangle and noise, and then there's some down here that looks like hi-hats and snares and kick drums. I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't know what's bit masking or binary masking. Sorry, anyone?
I don't know. I've never heard of it, but it does look like it's a machine intended for some drum use, doesn't it? You know, with those if they are like some sort of waveform selectors, you could select like a hi-hat wave. You know, I don't know. It just looks drummy to me.
So in the chat room, Asio Head says binary masks. That's coding. Andrew's useful contribution is mask on your face, mask on your other bits. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Marshall said, I heard binary masks are needed to protect your PC from the coof. No, sorry, I don't know. Now we might have some useful things. So bit shifting or masking to change values. Don't know how it works in this synth. Maybe instead of a classic filter, they bit mask the values. So it does sounds like it's a computery type thing. Oh, Cryss has disappeared. There it is. We're back in.
It all sounds very jittery to me. I can't imagine that, you know, these. If it is to control a filter, I imagine it to be very stepped. You know, just from the sound of the description of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we'll wait and see. They've got our attention, but so aside from doing the VFM keyboards and the Mark II Essence FM, they've got this little thing, which it says it's got a built-in speaker. They have confirmed that, and this little LED display, and just a couple of rotary knobs here, and this little diagram on the right here. I'm not entirely sure what that refers to, but yeah, they've got our attention, I suppose. So yeah, that's Kodamo with the BitMasker. We'll wait and see. And that, ladies and germs, brings us nicely to the top of the hour, where we can say goodnight and put our feet up for the week. Gentlemen, have you got anything you'd like to add? Anything that you're doing this week that is of interest to us and our audience?
Again, I'll if anybody wants to check out the new music that we did for the countdown, I've put it up on my channel. Very easy to find, Synthient sound, and I give a description about what was used and kind of walk through of how I put it together. I mean, it's only 30 seconds of music, so and you can hear it all again at the end of the video. It has a full thing, including Ben's music. I can't tell you how Ben did it. It's magic. I don't know.
I am intending on doing my own video.
Yeah, but I can at least tell you how I did mine. So,
so there you go. You got two Crysses on screen at once. And, yeah. So he runs you through everything you need to know there.
Howdy, partners. Here you can see
So yeah, that was interesting. And so we're going to badger Ben to do one as well.
Yeah, I will do one.
Maybe I should have a go at doing some outro music, because maybe that'll be my task.
On the Fairlight.
Oh gosh, that's more trouble than it's worth.
So Ben did his, like, what was yours, all analog style instruments? I think you said you used the what was it, the Sub Fatty or something, or
it was the little Fatty, wasn't it? I used that for the sequencing, the arpeggio thing. Yeah, it was all analogy. I can't remember what I used actually. I'll have to go back to the project file and have a look what was in it. But I know it was there was the Moog in it, and I think there was a bit of P6 in there as well. So yeah, and I did a little bit of a mix. So Robbie, you're gonna have to do at least one track from, like, the only analog synthesizer that you have. Well, everything else can be Fairlight and FM Yamaha stuff.
I could use my Mattel Synsonics for the drums. That's analog. I could just use my MS1. Yeah. I'll have to think about that. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, there we go. That's another show, another week done and dusted. We're getting closer to the end of the year. Some of us are coming out of lockdown. Some of us are going into deeper lockdown. But yeah, it's interesting times. Just also to remind you that first of all, if you want to contribute to our fund that keeps us on the air, then this is the address down here. It's also in the show description. Please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to get notifications. All of these things help us generate presence, and therefore ultimately can help us generate more income to keep us doing the things that we do. But if you want to donate and keep us on the air, that's the address down there. Click on the link. It's a PayPal donation thing. So whatever you can afford, we'll be incredibly grateful for. And for everyone that has already donated, a gazillion thank yous from all of us, because you're keeping us able to do this for you. If you want to join us during the week, then of course join us on our Facebook page. So just go to Facebook and search Pro Synth Network and you'll find us. Hit the join button if you're not joined already. I'd also like to remind anyone that if you invite someone to join, which we'd love you to do because we trust our members knowing the right people to invite, they will have to answer the questions. So sometimes we get a kind of list of people that just sit there and they don't know they've been invited. So tell them you've invited them and that they've just got to answer three simple questions, and we will let them into the group. And then we don't ask them what the weight of an unladen swallow is. So they're
Or their favorite color.
Yeah, or their favourite colour, indeed. We should do, really, just for a joke and a laugh. But there you go. So if you want
Robbie,
to...
could you tell us what your favorite sampling software is?
I would say
Do you
right
use
now...
Contact?
No, I don't. I use something else that's made by a different company in France. I think we all...
Wonder what that is.
It's kind of like a bird. It's like a bird. Almost had me. You almost had me.
Didn't Atari make one?
Yeah, they did. They did. Yeah. I've been deep in Atari hell just recently as well, trying to convert.
I think the capital of Assyria, was that Nineveh? Ragu was asking. I don't know what that has to do with the conversation, but...
What was the capital of Assyria? I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'll have to Google that. I'm sure it's worthwhile looking into that one. Yes. So I don't know. Did anybody get bingo, or are you all waiting for me to say something? Because I'm not going to say it. Anyway, there you go. That's the end of the show. We will be back same time, same place next week. I'm not sure if we have a guest yet, but we might do. What's he doing? Look at that. Nineveh is right. You may pass. So we'll be back same time, same place next week. But we're always over on the Facebook page, so please engage with us there. Hit like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff. And if you want to donate, links down in the bottom. I think that's everything. So with that, we shall say goodnight and have a great week. Stay safe and stay healthy. And we'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.